Hey everybody, welcome to the May 2024 regular meeting of the Oak Hills Park Authority. We can get started right away. I'll do so with just a roll call. I think it's easiest just if I list off the people who are here, and I'll start with myself, the chair, Joe Andrasco, the chair, Alan Dutton, the vice chair, Denise
Here.
Brown, the treasurer, Gary Leeds,
Here.
Rich Dunn, and Jen McAllister, who is appearing in the Zoom as Joe Andrasco, but she's here. Oh, and TJ Trimboli just joined. Those are the Oak Hills Park Authority members that should be listed in attendance. Management present are Mark Gartner, controller, and Paul Alexander, the golf professional. Jim Holiday is having technical difficulties, and Jim Shell is out tonight. We also have Jerry Crowley and John Lloyd present. So we have 6 members present. We have a quorum. Robert Stowers said he would not be available. So that is where we are. So next up is acceptance of the May 18th minutes of the regular meeting. Do we have a motion to discuss those minutes?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss page 3.
Yeah, let's just do motion, just for efficiency's sake. Motion, I think Gary made a motion.
To discuss.
Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, then the minutes are on the table, we can discuss. Gary,
Okay, on the top of page 3, there's a spelling error or whatever in the first line.
Mhm.
He then discussed an idea he had about offering something. Is that supposed to be golf, underprivileged youth?
Yeah,
or-
I think so.
It's GOLPH and it should be GOLF.
About offering golf to maybe underprivileged youth. And then down in the last paragraph, it says, Mr. Leeds said they were giving access to anyone who wants to help with the prep. I don't know what that means. I don't remember. I don't know what prep we're talking about. So I'm not sure what that sentence is.
Okay, that's page 3?
Yeah, down toward the bottom.
Okay, should we just strike that sentence, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
If you're not sure what it is.
And I didn't note that the garage was a disaster and something had to be done. Is that the house we're talking about? Or the, I don't know where that is.
Oh, actually,
This is
I
in tennis.
think we're talking about the tennis garage, and I know that that was not you, Gary.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
that
think
was-
both of those were Jim Shell.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
So I think down at the bottom of page 3, second to last paragraph, it says Mr. Leeds said they are. It should be Mr. Shell said they are.
Okay.
And I do recall this.
Yeah. So that's prep to get the garage together or,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay. Now that's all I had, as far as, comments.
Okay, I noted up in attendance.
Yeah.
Alan Dutton should be named as the vice chair. Rich Dellinger was here. And then Robert Stowers is listed under others and should be moved up into attendance. He did arrive at 7:10, so that's fine. Then something kind of meaningful. Usually these are little tiny things, but we have a couple of meaningful ones this time. In the report of the chair, top of page 2, it says it was determined that expressly excluding alcohol sales from the beverage cart was also necessary. The word alcohol should be all. It was determined that expressly excluding all sales from the beverage cart was also necessary. Other than that, it's fine. And then last thing I had was page 6, bottom of page 6. It Is Mark Gartner's name is spelled Gautner. It should be Gartner.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
Yeah, and one more thing on page 6. In the third line of the Nature Committee, nothing majorly wrong, maybe, instead of Maggerly or,
Yep.
I didn't even see this one. Yeah, I think it should be Majorly. Oh, and there again in that paragraph, a couple of times, Gautner.
oh, yeah, right.
Huh. So we should just clean up. It looks like that misspelling shows up a couple of times. It should be Gartner.
And it's also in the last line as well.
Yeah.
Ms. Brown asked about the possibility of grants.
Yeah, I had actually emailed something to Mark. So Mark, could you just gonna submit that? Or should I?
I already sent it on to Lesko.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so mostly gremlins, but a couple of meaningful things, people being captured wrong, and then one thing that actually does mean a different thing in the chair report. Anything else on the minutes? Okay, motion to approve.
So moved.
Any second?
A second.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved with edits. Okay, moving on, we go to public comment. Let me see if I see anybody in there. I see one attendee, Mark.
No, yeah, that's
Audrey,
Audrey.
who's already moved in.
I just promoted her to a panelist. She's here for the nature section.
Okay, perfect. Then, report of the chair. I didn't have anything in particular to get to. I know things are kind of progressing around the park, so I think I'll just let management reports speak for themselves or read for themselves if Jim and Jim aren't able to attend. So I'll close report of the chair, save a little bit of time, and then move into management reports so we can go to you, Paul.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Well, May is here and the golf season is in full swing. The course really looks great. And we're open at 6 o'clock during the weekends and 6:30 during the week. Close time is 6:30. We've been really busy in the afternoons. Last year, we did not have tee times available for sale after 6 o'clock this time of the year. But due to some customer demand, I've opened the tee sheet till 6:30 and we're seeing a lot of evening golfers. And as well, I can honestly tell you I was out there today and yesterday, and those new mowers are really making a difference in the rough. The rough looks great, and it's not quite as long as it used to be, but course is really healthy. But the weather's been mediocre, as everybody knows. And when we have good days, we're seeing a lot of golfers. Doesn't matter if it's a Monday or Tuesday, but just haven't seen too many great days yet this spring, but I think everything's going to turn next week. So we have a golf staff of 36 at the moment, and most of our staff works 3 shifts a week, composed of 6-hour shifts. And I've been here 13 years. I think this might be the best year for the golf staff. I mean, we really have some great qualified people, really care and love Oak Hills. We also sold more than 900 golf memberships, and I think we're on a race to really sell a lot of memberships here. That's a big number for this time of the year. So we've had 2 outings so far this year that went very well. 2 weeks ago, we had one, the biggest outing, I believe, almost ever at Oak Hills Park, Tunnel to Towers, 146 golfers. We had to bring in some extra carts. Last week, we had the Norwalk Fire Department with 121 golfers. We have 13 more outings on the schedule, and we have a possibility of adding another good one in October. Today, we had a Callaway demo day, give our golfers an opportunity to see new Callaway product, try some things, maybe compare it to their own. Both the Oak Hills Men's Association and Women's Association are in their 6 weeks of tournaments. Steve Shepard's really been a big help to both associations as well as the setup of some of our outings. We now have 5 different bag tags for Oak Hills Park. Just a few years ago, we didn't have any. We have tags for the Men's Association, the Women's Association, the 9-Hole Women's Association, our Junior Association, and then we have another basic tag that anybody can buy if they like. Everything with golf now is going pretty good, and they continue to drive numerous golfers to our course. Men's opening day was Sunday, May 5th. We didn't have a big turnout due to poor weather conditions. But again, our golf shop is fully stocked, maybe more than I'd like. But there's a lot of good new merchandise in there. Our 68 carts look as good as ever, and they're all running very well. And the 2 warm-up bays we purchased last year, a lot of people are getting used to them. They know they're there, and they're getting a lot of play there. And I think people are really happy that we have those. Other than that, we're approaching Memorial Day real quick here. We expect things to get really busy, ensuring us a great 2024 golf season for Oak Hills Park. And last but not least, we're in touch with the First Tee of Connecticut, and we're just trying to maybe pick a day where we can have some of the kids come over from the First Tee. And that's it.
Paul, how would the First Tee work on our course in that we have a very limited range?
Yeah, so we do clinics with 14 people there. That's not a problem at all. And they're even interested in somewhat of a classroom situation. And depending upon the kids they bring, we might even hit some wiffle balls out on the Great Lawn if we have to.
And we could use the Great Lawn for that?
I think we can use the Great Lawn for a few things as long as we don't really put any permanent structures on it.
Okay.
So I've been told.
All righty, sounds good.
Any other questions for Paul?
I'm just curious, Paul, you have 36 golf staff. How many more do you need to be fully staffed? What are you looking for?
I think we never have 40. It's usually about 38. I think we're waiting for 2 college age staff to return. And this year I'm kind of excited because I lost a lot of good college kids who've been helping me for years. They have internships, and I've replaced them with adults who aren't quite as busy, and they're more obligated to Oak Hills. So I think we'll have 38 the most.
Okay.
It's
Thanks.
really not the number we do every year. But I think staff here is going to do a lot of availability. Everybody has a lot of vacations and things going on, and the younger people seems to be the busiest. But yeah, we really got some great new additions this year and last.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
You.
Jim Shell could not make it tonight, but he did file his report in the agenda. I'll just open it up. If there's any questions on what he's written, we could certainly document them, and he can respond back. Okay. Then we can move on to Report of the Controller, Mark Gartner.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, just the budget is in good shape and ready for presentation tonight. The numbers are pretty much finalized. I just have to send it to be reviewed with Denise. But the numbers that are in the agenda are pretty much right there. We made an extra $1,000. That's about it. And lastly, we do have a new audit partner at PKF O'Connor Davies. That's our auditors. He's been assigned to us. Denise and I were going to be having a phone meet and greet with him and go over some of our frustrations from last year when he gets off of a current intense project that he's on. That's it for me.
Okay.
Mark, how's our cash position?
Good. Although I was hoping it would be a little bit higher than it is right now. We still have $450 or so invested in Bankwell and Chase. But our current balance in Norwalk Bank and Trust, which are our operating account, last I saw was around 50,000, and I was hoping it would be a little bit higher than that. I think these last 2 weeks, that the first 2 weeks of May usually are a bit nicer weather, and I think I know that is definitely impacted it. Today the utilization was only 46%. Our April days were doing better than May, which is very unusual.
Well, it was a strange morning. Probably lost a lot of golfers like me
Well,
in the
and
morning.
then the rain yesterday and cold and windy and yeah. But
Right.
better weather is on the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
And you're projecting that we're going to end the year with how much cash?
Last I checked was 635,000.
So that's about equal to last year, a little bit less.
I think so, right there, yeah.
Okay.
Which is much better than budget. Budget was 400 and I forget, 450, somewhere around there, less
Right.
than that.
Yeah.
Rounds exceeded, right?
Mark, how did April turn out? Just down and dirty. Obviously, the numbers aren't in yet, but what are your thoughts on April?
Hold on. We did our April revenues were $137,000 over budget.
Budget's too low. Sorry.
Eight-
No, okay.
Put it this way, I hope the next 2 weeks turn around, or we're gonna have a better April than we are May, because we saw some pretty good weather, at least for a good portion of April, and I was seeing, weekends in July, we could be making $13,000-14,000, and we were doing that in April. It was ridiculous. Now, part of that was membership fees, which will go down when we hit July. It'll be purely golfing, but still, that was the numbers. I don't think we've ever seen in April with numbers like that. So it was very good from a revenue perspective. And actually, hold on. I'm sorry. That's for the year to date. I apologize. For only the month of April, we're $62,000 over budget, with expenses coming in slightly lower than budget as well. So that was basically all revenue, 60,000 revenue, and then like $2,000 under in expenses. So much better than March, which we were under budget on revenue and over budget on expenses. So a very good month for April.
So based on those numbers, did you change the forecast, or you keep it the same as what we did when we spoke? How did that work out?
I was going to go over that when I hit the
No problem. No problem.
all I'll say is that reforecast, when you're building a budget, you can't keep going back and finessing. So I pretty much locked it in. So yes, what we see as the reforecast in the budget is not affect is as of March. So April is not reflected in there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mark? Okay, thanks, Mark. Unfortunately, we also don't have Jim Holliday, so if there are any questions on his report, which is his usual bullet point rundown of what he's been up to, we can take them and he can answer them offline. Any questions?
No, I don't think.
Okay, charging through. We can move on to committee reports and start with tennis, Denise.
Hi, am I on, can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you, we can see you.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if I was on mute. Hello, everybody. Okay, so the courts are open. Kings Highway got them open on time, May 13th, which was this past Monday. But, with the rain, we also got rained out on Wednesday. It was a total washout. So we were already behind on one of our, on all the matches that were supposed to be played on that day. So that'll get worked out as the season moves on. But, they're opened and they're up and running, which is a great thing. So we're happy to have that done. The patio is going to be reset with all the pavers. Once I know that Jim has been in negotiations with Costello. So that will be, the repairs there will be done. I know the well is done, or the plumbing for the well was finished. And so now we're just going to have the patio stones put back. We also are going to be, thanks to a wonderful donation that we received, we're going to be able to do the 2 walkways to both of the tennis courts and then the apron around the tennis building. That's expected to be done possibly by June 7th. So the Costello Landscaping Company will also be doing that. So they'll be completing the repair work and with the walkways too. And we've pretty much decided on our plaque for Arthur's Court. We've got some quotes coming in. I have a feeling, we haven't finally decided on it, but we should have that probably decided within the next week or two. We're still waiting for one quote that's back ordered. I have a feeling that I'd like to go with the quote that I got from this company in California. I've worked with them before. I think they do a good job. So hopefully that's in the works soon. Kings Highway did supply new park benches for the courts. They're plastic. They're not the ones that I think were originally we wanted to choose, but they're durable. They're suitable for the courts. They can handle all the watering that needs to happen on the courts, because their courts are watered like 5 to 7 times throughout the course of 24 hours. So they're okay. And Jim Holiday got great quotes for the new windows and the painting for the tennis building. So that's something we'll talk about in the next month or two with the Friends of Tennis, and of course with Oak Hills. And one thing that I just wanted to mention, I spoke with, I emailed with Darlene Young. She's with the City of Norwalk. So I spoke with Paul by email, so we might be able to work out the program with the youth program to bring in, a high school student for the summer for the months of July and August. It is a part-time program. They get paid minimum wage. The city does pay for them. And it is about a 25-hour-a-week job. So trying to see if we can work out something to bring in some youth for employment, either through Paul or through possibly Jim Shell. So, and that's it at the moment, unless, Rich, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it nicely. Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's a great report. Any questions for Denise or Rich?
Not a question, just one additional comment that I've already received the second installment of 3 from Kings Highway for their lease. So they're ahead of schedule, which is very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Good thing. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Next up, we have supporters, and Jerry Crowley, I see you're here. Anything to report on?
Not yet. I will next time.
Okay. And then we also, next up, we have Nature Advisory Committee, and Audrey, I think you're here for that. Hi. Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Audrey, you're on mute.
Not anymore.
No
So
longer.
it's just really nice to see everybody, and it's been a long time. The Oak Hills Park Nature Advisory Committee has been revived after a hiatus during the pandemic. We've met twice at the park in the last month, and a big thank you to Jim Holiday and Mark Gartner who kicked this off. So the committee liveth and breatheth again, and includes the members of this committee now, besides Oak Hills Park, members such as Jim and Mark, include the Norwalk Garden Club, the Norwalk Land Trust, and the city's Rec and Parks Department. So what we found since this Earth Day gathering of the tribes is that the various environmental groups are helping one another instead of going it alone. So we've got actually two environmental groups helping stewardship of the Nature Center at Oak Hills Park, because it is a gem within our suburban area. And the tennis center also was part of these first couple of meetings. So it's been terrific. So the garden club on Tuesday visited the fountain garden for the second time. And their volunteers, along with a few Norwalk Land Trust volunteers, have planted native plants in the fountain garden. So they're focusing on the fountain garden and putting in some stone edging and also using some sweet peat, which is a natural mulch, because in the nature center, we don't allow any pesticides or anything that might be injurious to our native birds and insects. So the garden club has really stepped up there. On April 16th, Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection forester David Beers made a second visit to Oak Hills Park. He had come out in May 2021. So he came out to visit us once again, and there was a big group. He's a biologist and forester, and he gives an assessment of parks and open spaces all around the state, and gave us another good assessment of the health of our woodlands and our nature center. And that meeting was attended by our Rec and Parks Director, Robert Stowers, as well as the new city's horticulturist and arborist, Sarah Cruz, who's also part of this committee. So we have some really good people looking in on what we're doing and giving us clean bill of health too. So it's terrific. And also Mr. Beers visited the tennis center. So he's trying to help out wherever with keeping our acres over there nice and healthy. We had some fallen trees on the trails, which Jim Shell and Tiz got out their chainsaws and promptly and with many thanks, promptly and proficiently cleared away the fallen trees. The forester said that those were just part of the natural order of things. Trees fall, and it wasn't from anything like a disease or something like that. So we were really happy to hear that. On Earth Day, Bill Wren, who was a member of the Nature Committee, who's a member of the Land Trust, held a forest bathing guided trail walk in our trails at Oak Hills Park. So that was in the morning of the big Earth Day celebration on the green, which had the city estimated about almost 2,000 people. So that was terrific. And we want to promote the trails and the woodlands as a place for forest bathing. I don't know if you know of the practice, but it started in Japan, and it's been quantified scientifically to lower your blood pressure, to lower your heart rate and de-stress, because you're just in nature and you just sit and meditate. And doctors in Japan actually prescribe forest bathing for their patients. So it's pretty cool. So we've got the perfect spot. Not that we want droves of people coming over to Oak Hills Park. There's not enough parking, but certainly for the general area to come and enjoy the nature there. And the last things that I wanted to mention through our little budget is we want to include tags, which Sarah Cruz, the new arborist for the city, is going to help us identify trees, plants, and the typical wildlife that tends to be in our woodlands, and have these little metal tags that are on stands. So as people walk through the woods, they can become acquainted with our natural wildlife, flora and fauna. And we might want to do a sort of a little fundraiser in the fountain garden once it's all planted over the summer. So we'll certainly let you know when that's happening. So I think we've got a unique destination at Oak Hills Park, and we want to keep it healthy, and just learning more from the state of Connecticut and what they do for open space and woodlands, and all these different groups participating is really, really helping to shape or preserve a gem. We don't want to change it in any way. We just want to keep it healthy. That's our report for today.
Another great report.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's really refreshing to get input from the NEC and to hear that it's revitalized. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I've always talked about the park being many things, one of which is open space. And yeah, it's closed in because there's trees and you can't just run around, but it's open space and it's really important. And the canopy is really important to Norwalk, which does have low canopy density.
We have very good tree canopy in those woods.
Yeah.
So
The one thing I'd note, you mentioned budget and tags, and I always love walking around those open spaces, curated a little bit with,
Yeah.
oh, that's what that tree is. I never knew, and that sort of stuff. I wonder if, and nothing to do right now, but just to chat later on. Jerry's here from supporters. If there's some, money from supporters that could be freed up from that.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay so far. They're not terribly expensive.
Okay.
We'll take a look at what makes sense to tag and come up with a budget. But I think we're probably okay now. So we'll see. Well,
Okay.
if we have a fundraiser in the Fountain Garden this summer, we may have a little extra. And
Sure.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good.
Any
I'd like to
questions
thank,
for Audrey?
I'd like to thank Robert Sturz for his involvement in this. He is on our board and also as a director of Parks and Rec. So thank you, Robert. I know you're not with us tonight for helping out and being there. I think it's a great thing. Thank you.
It is, and allowing his one of his employees, Sarah Cruz, who's a real, it's the first time I think the city's had a staff arborist, horticulturist at Rec and Parks. Even though I don't think Oak Hills Park is under the purview of Rec and Parks
Correct.
completely, but they're willing to play. And actually, a few years ago, we had DPW come over with a crew for 2 days to take out a lot of invasives. So we do have some partnerships, and we're trying to cultivate them because everybody's got their area of expertise. So Robert being on the board it really is terrific.
Audrey, a
Great.
quick question on the large area where the walking path is. You
Yeah.
don't have any plans for that, immediate plans for that right now?
Well, right now, I've actually got an email into David Beers, who's the Connecticut Deep forester who visited us recently, about the state's guidelines on open space. In the whole nature center, there's 3 features, and it comprises about a little over 14 acres. The woodlands in the middle, the fountain garden on one side, and then the great lawn on the other side. There's criteria for what you can and can't do. And I don't know that we've ever really seen the guidelines. So he's on vacation until the 20th. And I hope to see some guidelines of what I do know that, if we want to have an event, if there was a wedding or occasion, we've had some events. I've noticed there's been a big tent out there. We've had Arbor Day events there. There could be a wedding there. I think so long as it doesn't injure the property in some way, or become a permanent, I don't know what they mean by permanent. Is that a week, 2 weeks, forever? I don't know what the timeline is on things. So we're gonna look for the guidelines.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware, a couple of years ago, they tried to do a meadow.
Yeah, we did that. Yeah.
And well, I'm in the Rowayton Gardeners, and we had just had a presentation on how to do a meadow. And that work did not correspond with what we were presented. So it was kind of interesting to see that that's now gone.
Yeah, the meadow, we consulted actually with a few meadow experts, and
Yeah.
we had a first year that was absolutely gorgeous. But the thing is you need quite a bit of maintenance and elbow grease year
Right.
after year. Then as it turns out, speaking with the horticulturists, that meadows are really not native necessarily to our area. So what we're looking at now are things like microforests. The whole area wants to be a forest and not a lawn, or a meadow.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a few things we're looking at, but I would love to talk to you a little more about that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
Thanks.
Audrey.
Anything else for Audrey?
No, thanks very much, Audrey. Nice to have you back, and very comprehensive report. Thank you.
If it wasn't for Rich, I wouldn't be here tonight.
That's great.
Yeah. And Gary, we'll talk. I know some of the other gardeners, and I'm a board member of the Land Trust, and most of my board member colleagues are from Rowayton and connected with the gardeners. So it's all of a piece.
Yeah. Right.
It's
Okay.
the tribes will unite.
Yeah. So Mary's participating, Beryl?
Yeah, Mary Verrill was going to speak tonight. So this committee that's been invigorated. Mary Verrill has offered to be chair and I'm her vice chair. So,
Okay.
Great.
so we've
All right.
got, and she's a board member of the Land Trust. So, you know,
Right.
there's people wearing a lot of hats and we're trying to do our best to protect
Okay.
our
I'll
beautiful.
see her tomorrow, so I'll chat with her too.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
good. Okay. All right, good night all. I'm gonna head out.
Thank you,
Audrey.
Audrey.
Thanks again, Audrey.
Thanks, Audrey.
Bye.
Okay, next up is, nominating committee. I guess it's technically new business, but that's right there, so that's fine. So every May, we are supposed to create a nominating committee to kind of convene and determine candidates and a slate for the next executive committee. So who's going to be chair, vice chair, and treasurer going forward. And so it falls upon me as chair right now to name a chair of a nominating committee to do that work. And I'm going to do that. And in a surprise move, I'm going to name myself as chair because I'm moving on. I'm done in June, termed out. So I'll go through the grunt work of following up with people and figuring out who would like to do that. If anybody's interested in any of those roles, please shoot me an email or a text and let me know. And I asked before the meeting if Jen McAllister would join me in that effort. I don't think it'll be too big of an effort, but just to have another person following up. And Jen said that she would. So I think it'll just be two of us should cut it. And we'll have a slate distributed to the OHPA membership before the June meeting so that everybody's kind of aware of the thinking. And then we can vote on it in the June meeting. And I think, I'm not exactly sure. This is a little bit separate from nominating committee, but it's tangentially related. But I do believe that there are a couple of appointments that'll be going through in June to begin June 24th. So I don't know if they'll be official members for the June meeting this year, but they will be shortly thereafter. And Rich and TJ, I did submit your names. I don't think we need any updated information or anything, a new resume or anything. I did submit your names to the city clerk to get on the agenda for a June city council meeting to be reappointed to the OHPA. So that's kind of membership and all that stuff that I'll just put under that agenda item. Any questions on all that?
No.
Okay. Then we can move on to real old business, new business, and I think it's just new business. Preliminary budget review. Mark, please take us away.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I'll start by sharing my screen here.
Yeah. I do want to preface, I have some tough questions for you, so.
Oh, okay.
They're probably easy for you. I just don't know the answer.
Yes, and if I start slogging into details too much, I have no problem if you give me a little nudge, Joe.
Okay.
I'll try to get through this quickly, but I do want to explain it, make sure everyone is understanding of all the work that went into this and so forth. Okay, I'm going to start. So what we're looking at here is the fiscal year 2025 budget, which begins this July 1st of 2024 and goes through June 30th of 2025. This presentation that I have right here, it's showing fiscal years 21, 22, 23, their actual results of the year that have been audited and so forth, just for comparative purposes. And then our budget for the current year, fiscal year 24, is presented there, as well as a reforecast, which is basically, as I mentioned before, that's basically the actuals for 9 months through March, and then 3 months of budget, which have been adjusted a little bit by me for if I know of anything that's coming in higher or lower. Anyway, and I want to make sure that I make everyone aware that I've compiled the budget, but it was definitely a group effort. The other staff members, Jim, and Paul, contributed information for their departments, and then the finance committee, which was Joe, Alan, Denise, and Gary were great to kind of just meet with and give feedback and ask questions and offer suggestions up, down, move numbers around. And so what we're looking at now is the fourth version of our preliminary budget. I'm going to
And
start at the top.
the plan is we'll go through this opportunity to ask questions. If there's anything substantive, Mark can go back, think about it, make edits, and we'll have a final budget in the June meeting to approve in advance of our July 1st fiscal year start.
Perfect. Okay, we'll start at the top. Our revenue rounds, which is the most important number on this budget because it drives our golf revenue. After discussions back and forth, you know, we looked at an average of the last 4 years, and then also current golf trends and added a little bit of conservativeness to make sure we didn't get too high. So we kept it the same as our reforecast. And what that's done is basically, if you look down here, that plus the golf revenue per revenue round, that's our average rate. And you know what goes in there is, you know, anyone who a non-member that plays on a weekend is $60, but then you have, you know, in the winter we have winter rates at $25. We have employees who play at a discount, so all that stuff goes together, and this is one blended rate. And what we did was we just increased the budgeted rate only by 1%. So we're going from basically, which comes out to 10 cents per round. And you recall every year we put $1 raises, you know, on many different categories. So that's where this all kind of comes into. And what that shoots out is basically
Mark, on that line item,
Yep.
do you mind if we just kind of ask when you're on a line item?
I'm sorry, ask what?
Is it okay if we interrupt you and ask while you're
Yeah,
on a
please
specific-
do.
Yeah,
Please do.
okay. So you're going up by a lot more than $1 over column H, the FY24 reforecast.
Yeah.
Is that weighted with more winter rates, the
Yes.
3482?
Yeah, you weren't in that meeting. We had a meeting in my office, and it kind of dawned on me as we were talking. I didn't know why it was so low. It made no sense, especially when you look at the consistency of the last few years.
Yeah.
And it is because it's missing April, May. It's really a 9-month rate, and that does
Yeah.
not include April, May, and June, when we're not only going to have more play, but it's at the highest rates we've ever had because we've increased our rates at January 1, but then we went to winter rates at $25. So
Yeah.
you basically have to throw that out. I probably should just delete it, to be honest, because
Well, you should certainly think of it as a floor. We shouldn't go below that.
Yes.
And so, you know, the maybe more comparable thing is the 3657 versus FY23 actual, which is just a really modest increase. It seems like with 2 rounds of price increases since then, that would actually be a little conservative.
Yes.
And ties in with the top line total rounds and revenue rounds. My personal preference here would be to bring those revenue rounds down a little bit because they've been really good, and you know, just guarding against any softness in the market. Weather could change, you know, any number of things could happen that would put that at risk. But I think you've got it on the price side. I think that price will actually probably end up beating 3657. Not by much, but by enough to make it substantive to offset any lack of conservatism that might be in the revenue rounds. So that's, yeah, I know I kind of mentioned that in some emails, but I'm now comfortable with this as a whole because of that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It may be on the wrong line here, but the calculation will still work out where
just get it somewhere.
It makes up for it. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you. I think the average rate, or whatever you call it, 36.21 2 years ago, 36.57 is pretty conservative, to be honest with you. So I think there is some room there, you know, to be on the conservative side. So I think good. Okay.
Cool. Great. Anyway, so that basically calculates down to our golf fees as well as our tournament fees, because tournament fees are our outings, and outings are counted as revenue rounds. So it's really it's one bucket that we split out on our P&L. So and as we've seen this past year, Paul can attest to it. If we have an open Monday with no outing, we tend to make the same amount of money. So what you would see in the end would be, would be $7,000 under on tournament fees, but we'd be 7,000 over on golf fees. So it really is the same bucket. Our ID cards, that's the discount ID cards that we sell for memberships. I did a calculation, and we come in between 1,150 and 1,200 average per year for these last 4 years. Paul said we're already at 900, and I agree. I showed that we were going to hit about 1,200 both in the reforecast and for the FY25 budget. And there's a good chance that for this year we're going to come in over that. So anyway, 1,200 is the base. With usually we do like a $5 increase per category, which in theory would come out to 1,200 times 5%. 5% would be $6,000. Sorry, $5 would be $6,000. And here we showed about 8. But if you look at the trends from 23 to 24, 8,000 increase, another 8,000. I like the number. I think it's good.
Hey, Mark, where are the ones being sold now? Are they in 24 or 25?
24.
Okay.
Even though
So
and this
that's
is
really-
the problem with doing both this and season passes. It's a calendar sale,
Yeah.
but we split it on here. And the same thing with season passes. Then I basically I already know what the first 6 months of FY25 is because we've already sold it for this calendar year. So that's our July through December, and then I add in again the 5% or so increase on the passes is what we've been doing this past year too.
Yeah.
So slight increase there. Cart revenue, I'll be honest, I'm gonna play the conservative card now. When I was reviewing this earlier, we're basically saying we're not gonna increase our cart rate, and the average rate, so it's $20, and we increased it $2 over 2022 and 2023 to account for all the cart path paving, but it's not something that we can just keep increasing. We're already on the high end in regards to Fairfield County. So if we and the average rate of that, because it includes twilight carts and employee carts and so forth. So instead of $20, the average rate being used is about $18.50. And if that's not included, if that's not increasing, and I put the number of cart rounds right around the same, and just the calculation alone is showing $20,000 increase there. I personally think maybe we should cut back by 10,000, 15,000.
I agree. Yeah, I was looking at that, Mark. That's right, because you're 441 in fiscal year 2003. Obviously, forecast we're not looking at, but that 466 seems a little high to me, just off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
Okay, good. So you're in agreement. So what do you think? 10,000 off?
Well, whatever. I'm not, I defer to Paul or to the golfers or whatever, but I just think the number's a little high compared to, where it's been trending.
Okay. Paul, do you have
Well,
any
I just don't understand how it came into being, Mark. If you said your cart rounds are flat and your 1081 is the same rate, is it possible there's a little gremlin in your calculations?
It is. I only caught it earlier today, so I'm not quite sure. And the 1081 is actually not. That's cart revenue per revenue round. It's just a stat there. It's
I know.
for the
Okay.
the cart revenue per cart round is 1850 is what I'm assuming. I don't know the answer to it because the calculation for the reforecast, if you just recalculate, you don't quite come up to what it's showing for the revenue. So at the end of the day, I just think it's a little bit too aggressive, maybe a little hard to actually, we're gonna fall short of it next year. So
I would lop 10 grand off it, Mark, I think.
thank you. Other golf revenues are really just the gift certificates and gift certificate redemption. So we don't really look too much in that. It's very small potatoes. Down here for tennis, this is basically the I think it's the final year of our lease with Kings Highway. So that is a set number, and then Denise threw in an extra.
Next year is the final year, Mark. Sorry.
Okay, so
Next-
it
Next
straddles
year
both
is the
years.
5th year of the 5-year lease.
Okay, thank you.
Next summer.
And 2 of those months are included in here because 2 of those months are May and June of next year. And then Denise gave me her estimate on doing a couple of in-house tennis programs after Kings Highway clears out in September. And there'll be a small, like $3,000 expense down at the bottom for the pro and supplies and stuff like that too. So housing revenue is our front entrance house tenant. We had discussed we're not going to do any raise in his lease this year. Most likely next year we can do a small increase. So this number will go down by just $600. Okay, the restaurant this year, which it's funny, the accounting nerd in me just laughed at the fact that the reforecast amount of 39,200 is the same exact amount as what we budgeted, but completely different calculations and nothing to do with each other, just a weird coincidence. What we did here is with our new lease with Odines, fixed rent is $1,000 until for the first 9 months of next year, right? Which ends it in March, and then the next 3 months are up to $2,000. So we took that, that's fixed, that's easy, and then we took some assumptions on how much the gross food sales will be, on which we will get 5% per quarter for the first 3 quarters, and then 6.7% for the last quarter. So all that math together came out to 39,200, and 4 of the finance committee members thought that those numbers were very good. So any questions on anything so far? Okay.
No, but Mark, I was in your spreadsheet for V4. It looks like on the reforecast, if you explicitly calculate cart revenue, you're at 463 for the reforecast, going up to 466. This is an aggregation of some other numbers that aren't explicitly calculated. Nevertheless, cut it by 10K, right? I still think I come to the same conclusion. So that's fine. 456 feels good.
Okay, fair point though, and I'm surprised because I looked as of April, my preliminary April year-to-date numbers shows cart revenue like $200 under budget, and budget here for the whole year is 439. So even that 445 might be hard to hit, and I don't know. My gut is saying same thing. Let's not go too high.
Yeah, 455.
All right.
456. That's good. All right, keep moving.
Okay, other revenue here. This is our investment income, which is our interest earned on our excess cash. We didn't get quite a full year out of it this year, so next year, even with some of the balance going down in the second half of the year, we've got that first 6 months that's strong investment. And in addition to that, the other part of the other is we split 50% of online booking for non-members for our tee times with Golf Now, and that's why that number has increased since 2022. You'll see that this significantly increase, and that's what that is, as well as a couple other truly miscellaneous other stuff. Okay. Personnel expense obviously has confidential information, so I'm not going to go into any details other than to say that Jim and Paul were involved in their departments. This has been reviewed by the finance committee. Minimum wage was brought in, was taken into effect, as well as the average maintenance worker and so forth. And, small standard raises for any of the existing staff all went into here.
But I will say there was an upgrade, in Jim's area, Jim Shell's area, where we did go from someone who was Jim's assistant, to someone who is perhaps someone more qualified, has a degree in that area. So there is a certain upgrade in that area, in the quality of person we got. So there was an increase in the actual salary as well, which I believe is completely justified.
Good point.
Just as an FYI.
Yep. Thank you, Alan. Okay, utilities. I basically took the last 12 months worth of actual.
So, sorry, just to go up on that, I think one line item area that which points out to us is on the benefit line here. If we look, guys, and we're not going to name things, but if you look at what we spend in benefits, in 2023, the benefit number was sorry, I'm just pulling it out here, guys. 2002 was $143,000, and now the budget is 108. Not 100. Yeah, sorry, is that employee
180.
benefit? Yeah, 143. Now it's 180. So quite a substantial increase. So obviously increase in rates, but also increase in people that maybe weren't taking benefits in the past, may have left. New people come in, they're entitled to them, and they take it. That is quite a substantial number. A $40,000 increase. So
Yeah.
it's not in the payroll area. It is in the benefit side, to which we're contractually we say if you are certain, if you want to take benefits, you can, and that's what happened. I think. Just so we know.
Yeah, Alan, thank you for bringing it up. I actually I skipped over that. I apologize. I wanted to touch on that. If you look, this is the budget here, and the reforecast is coming in quite lower because somebody left who was taking benefits for health insurance specifically, and they're gone. But now, just in the past month, we have two more employees that are going on it. So that it basically went from covering employee plus spouse to now 5 people. So that is the biggest part of this increase, going from 2 people to 5 people. And
Yeah.
we do have a small plan, so it's not great, and we do pay 80% of our employees.
Can I just point out that from fiscal year 23 to the budget for 25, we've gone up over $200,000 in total personnel expenses. I know we added a general manager,
Mhm.
and that's some of it, but this is a pretty substantial increase. It's more than a 20% increase in 2 years.
Yeah, and
And
I think you point to the 3 things, biggest drivers: the 40 for benefits, the amount for adding the GM, and minimum wage increases, and not just minimum wage increases, but overall wage increases, and the things Jim has had to do to bring in people to actually do the work to go above minimum wage when we were at a lower minimum wage in prior years. Those 3 things are really driving all that.
and I think we really have to be careful here as we
Totally.
go forward. Because personnel, the quality of the people are really good. But our revenue hasn't grown at the same proportion. It's nice to have a nice cushion in our cash at the moment, but I certainly don't want to be sitting here in fiscal year 27 and see that we go up another 200,000, because then I don't know if we can sustain operations at a, I'll talk more when we get to the bottom line, but this is a substantial increase in 2 years.
Gary,
I would agree, Gary. And I don't looking at the future envisage any large increases. Obviously the biggest increase was the general manager, which I think has been well warranted and ways also to eventually save money. And I don't see that moving down the road any major changes in major personnel. And what Joe was saying is that in Jim Shell's area, just to get people to work 2 years ago or last year, we had to use agency people, seasonal personnel, and that cost us more money as well. It was really hard to get people to work. And the benefit increase, because we do say that, we do allow a certain level of employee to get benefits, and we've been lucky that the people we had were not getting those benefits. Now there's been some changes in that area, so those were the main reasons. But I do agree with you as well.
Yeah, but on the benefits side, can we, if we're our own plan, have we thought about, joining Norwalk's health plan or other courses? Is there any, a group that we can combine with to at least bring our rates down? Do we have any idea about that?
I don't. I don't. I would have to do some research.
I mean, we pay our own people, so I don't know how we could combine benefits.
Well, I realize we pay
Sure.
on people, but, um,
Yeah, there are organizations, Gary, you're right.
Yeah.
I was involved
Yeah.
and there are some organizations, but I'm not sure. A lot of the entities like clubs do their own, they don't self-insure because they're not big enough, but I'm not sure, but it's worth looking into just to see if there is a group, because the bigger the group, the lesser the exposure or the wider the exposure.
Yeah, we ought to take a look at that to see if there are any type of groups we can join. And I'm not saying, Mark, you got to do it on your own, but again, we can start with Robert and see if the town has any suggestions and, maybe talk to some of the other golf courses and just ask them, how do they handle their benefits? But
I like the idea. Yeah.
Sure.
yeah,
Because, I mean, you can envision a scenario where more people opt in next year and you're taking another 40.
Right.
And, the operational expense is going to be tough to cut. And so the only place that can really come from, and Gary, I mean, you stole some of the comments right out of my mind. The revenue is not growing as fast as the expenses here. And just forget
Yep.
the operational expenses, just the personnel expenses, it's not growing as fast. And so what would need to be done in future years, pretty soon, I think, would be to increase the revenue somehow, which would
Yep.
be through rates.
Mhm.
Because the rounds are already at, I think Paul will tell you, there's not much more the T sheet can sustain and
Right.
keep to reasonable time round. And then when you get to long rounds, then you're shot in the foot the other way, right? Then you can't sustain your T sheet either. So it's only going to come from rates.
Well,
Yep.
it's gonna come from rates and having a successful restaurant,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, a little bit there. I mean, I didn't ask Paul, we had that big outing, but was the outing able to use the restaurant or wasn't open? And so somehow we gotta look at how we can increase our revenue line somewhat.
And we didn't. It wasn't on the agenda. That was an oversight. But I do
Yeah.
hope that after we get through this, if John is still around, he can give us a short update on how O'Dean's is faring in the first couple of weeks.
Okay.
But let's keep going here.
Yeah.
Denise, you had a question?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. One is that we're getting hit this year by the increase for the new position that we added on. So I think that will slightly level out as the next couple of years go on because, we're getting hit all at once with that big lump of a difference. So, I just see that it's shocking to see it now, but I think it'll slightly level out where we may not be as upset going down 2 more years with it. And one of the things I'd like to, I don't really know if it has to do with this, it doesn't have to do with personnel, but it does have to do with revenue, is to look into the GolfNow reservations compared to the Oak Hills Park reservations and see the ratio and see what we're bringing in. Because I don't think that GolfNow is the same kind of amount of money that we bring in per round as it is when they come into our website and book, or, so I just I think if we can get somebody, or, if Jim Holiday has time, or I'd be happy to work with anybody to find out, more detail on what kind of reporting they can give us of a breakdown of how the rounds are split up.
Mark, can you comment on that?
I think that this is for Paul.
Okay.
I can tell you, we've already had a meeting and there's a possibility we can reduce some of our trade times with GolfNow. We had a gentleman come and sit with us. He's willing to come back. I 100% feel that with some, maybe a couple changes with our relationship with GolfNow and a new company, we can definitely increase our revenue tremendously.
Revenue so Paul, help me out. So if a non-resident pays, and I'm just making up a number because I can't
I'm
remember.
gonna,
Yeah.
I'm basically talking about, we're giving trade times away, and if we reduce that a little, that revenue will be ours. And I think we can make some extra money there for sure. And Mark's a little bit familiar. Jim Holiday was there. So we're gonna look into that a little more for sure.
So if a round cost is booked on Golf Now and they pay Golf Now $50, how much do we get? What's the percentage we get?
We get most of all of it. They're getting trade times. That's how they make their money.
So,
They're getting-
so basically, about 30% of our business is booked on the Golf Now website. We entered into an agreement with Golf Now, basically that we would give them X number of tee times, I believe, to as payment, where they could take these tee times and they can sell what they want with them. I'm not exactly sure how many tee times it is, but that's how they get their revenue. And they supplied us with all the
Hardware.
all the software and all the hardware and etc. And we go on their platform, the ability to go on their platform as well. The thing where they make the money is the actual tee times that they get from us, I think.
And
Right.
they get all of the revenue on those?
Yep.
They only get $2.49, I believe, is the booking fee. They're
Okay.
making money off their own trade times, and if it rains or it's cold and nobody uses those times, they don't make anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from
Okay.
Paul, from what the guy from 4Up said, it sounds like they're moving those rounds around. They're getting them anyway. So
I'm
that's
just
what
saying,
we have to look into.
if it's a nasty day and we're not selling. But yeah, I think there's definitely, and I would say at first Golf Now was helpful. We're getting really popular. We can use them basically as a booking engine, and we can seek our support elsewhere.
Paul,
But
do
I-
you give
When
them
we look into
particular
this a little more,
times? Like
Uh,
slots
when
of times? Do you give them slots of, when they can do things, or do you just say, okay, you got 30 slots today, or I don't know, just throwing numbers out there, or do you give them times,
it's fairly simple. We give them 3 tee times per day.
3 tee times? Okay.
Three
And
foursomes, right?
And they can,
course.
and they
And
can book that anytime they want during the day.
No, I don't let them really book before 10. They're supposed to be after 10 o'clock,
Okay.
and save the early times for our members annual pass holders. And basically, yeah, I think we're gonna look into this, but I'm fully confident that I can save Oak Hills a lot of money.
Okay.
Reducing the amount of trade times.
All righty.
Well, I spoke too soon then. There is another way to augment revenue.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we also have to see what our agreement is with them. Is this a 5-year, 3 or 4 year agreement, and can it be broken and stuff like that? I'm not sure about that either.
I can tell you our agreement is up this year with them, and the company one of many companies I talked to, but one of them has a licensing agreement with Golf Now that we can continue to use their booking engine, but we can get software and hardware elsewhere. We're basically,
Okay. But we should
Wait,
look at that.
Bring it back to this topic, the budget. Is any of what we're discussing going to alter these numbers for FY25?
I think it could increase our revenue rounds and our revenue, plain and simple.
With the questions still yet unanswered, is it something we would want to adjust? I would say no.
I don't think
We
so,
should
Joe.
assume
I'm
status
comfortable
quo
with
and
that.
take that as a windfall if it happens.
Yeah, windfall. I'd say we still have an existing contract, and we would have
Yeah.
to make into another one. So we don't know about that yet.
And to go live with a new implementation for a new POS system, I would strongly recommend we wait until the winter anyway, after busy season. So
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Might
Right
be a nice holiday present coming up.
Mhm.
Oak Hills Park.
Okay, so moving on to administrative expenses, I'll try to get through this quickly. For utilities, the reason you're seeing a spike here in our reforecast is because we have 1 quarter where we had no restaurateur, so therefore we ate all the full utilities for the clubhouse, which usually get allocated. And for this year, it's kind of right in line. I added, I think, a 6% increase if you back out any allocation. So that number looks pretty good there.
Insurance is contractual, audit is contractual, credit
Uh,
card fees are just a product of rounds.
Yep.
Other things are pretty flat, right?
Yeah. And this
Okay.
year, just office expense went up with Jim Holiday coming in, setting up his new computer. Paul and I just recently got new desktops as well for a very good price, monitors and so forth. So that's why that price went up, and it's going up again because we now have Cintas, which everyone may know from doing uniforms. They also have a service agreement in place with us for $3,000 for the year to monitor our AED equipment. So a
Okay.
little extra expense there, but it's for the safety of everyone. So it is.
And I think that came out of the OSHA thing a couple of.
It's part of it, and just
Yeah.
Jim Holiday really wants to
Yeah,
stress
it's
It just makes
$3,000
sense.
a year
AD&D
to make sure nobody runs out there who's having a heart attack, and we pull out an AED and it's 5 years old and the batteries are dead. So that will not happen under this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who do we use for a credit card processor?
Well, for our POS system, which is the bulk of everything we have, it is Golf Now. It's called My Payments, but it is their it's their way of the highway when it comes to that. So there was no choice about that, and they're the bulk of it. And then we use Stripe for our online store.
And our percentage is what, roughly?
Don't
Would we
ask.
Okay.
2.1, 2.2 mark on a Visa?
Somewhere 2.15 to 2.3, I think, is
Yeah.
if the card not present, stuff like that. And those
And
rates haven't really changed in the last 2 years since we got Golf Now. So and I'm thinking that, you know, the reason it's a little bit higher for this year is I don't know if people are just using credit cards more, less cash, but the rates haven't gone up that much. So I don't really know why. Well, I mean, it's only $1,000 off of last year. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're using credit cards to get, points. Come on.
Yeah. Everybody uses the credit card. You have to reserve your tea time.
Right.
Advertising is small. That's just it's Google clicks, and it's our SEO that we have with our web host. Sales and operations this is Paul's budget. It's for Golf Genius, which is new software that they use for outings and for the Men's and Women's Association. And then little things, not little, but Golf Pro supplies, pencils, the scoring pencils, waiver cards, all that stuff. So that's going up a little bit. Paul has asked for a little bit extra for.
Hey, Mark, let's get to the big items, please.
Yep, you got it. All right, other I won't get into. Park maintenance is Jim's budget. And basically he presented a certain amount. We pushed back just a little bit, I think, to come down a little bit. There's nothing here. Water is a shot in the dark. If you could predict the future, you'll know. But I'm pretty happy with that number there. All the maintenance is what it is.
Are the chemicals costing more because we have to use different chemicals? Or
There in the two things happen. Number one, some inflation with inflation going up over those last few years, that has affected it. But also the EPA has outlawed, or whatever you want to call it, banned the use of certain chemicals, which per Jim, he says that the replacements are more expensive.
Okay.
So it's not like we're buying more chemicals than before. It's just
Right.
everything's more expensive. Lastly, the cart area here. The area here for lease, this is just our property tax. Electricity, I just want to make one comment on electricity. And Paul, you should know this. While the carts are great, and the lithium batteries enable the carts to be out there more often than they used to, the charging time is less. But we were kind of promised that the amount of electricity to charge it would be less. And as you can see here, that is not the case. So still happy with the carts, just no savings there, which we had kind of expected. So, I mean, look at the budget. Budget was $13,700. We're coming in $4,000 over. So, okay.
Mark, can you go row 51? One of the bigger things there, equipment expense. It's got a little bit of an odd shape 23 to 24, reforecast to 25. What's happening there?
Okay, hold on. Let me go to my other file. Ah, 8. Okay. Okay, so this is all of our park equipment, which is on the P&L normally. Building maintenance jumped up this year. This was Jim Holiday now kind of is partial to this budget as well. All of the with the transition from Dry Dock to Odines, a lot of things were noticed in the kitchen that needed repair. Everyone's been in the kitchen, you know, it is a bit
Got it.
older. So
Yep.
everything from plumbing to HVAC to electrical has really hit this year. But it's kind of being and Jim asked for a little bit more in that area for next year as well, and that's basically what's driving that.
So I did ask Jim Holiday and Jim Shell about this. You know, ever since Jim comes in, there's been a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of things that haven't happened recently. You know, the bathrooms, the painting of the lines for parking, which is a great improvement. And you know, Jim has done a lot of things, Jim Holiday, since he's been here, and you know, and we'd like to continue that. You know, him doing that, and there is some money for that. With Odines coming in, there was a lot of money that had to be spent to bring the kitchen. Some of the equipment in there was not where it should be, so we entered into an agreement to pay for some of those things. That's included in the number, which was, you know, reforecasted at 122. So you know, it's down from 122 to 101, but it is going to be a little higher, Joe, because you know we are doing more and needed to do more.
Sure.
Well, so
Yeah,
that's the main reason.
there's still deferred maintenance. That ends up making sense. Going from 87 to 122 is a big pop of deferred maintenance on equipment and on building, but that retracts a little bit because
Yeah,
we've already done it, but it doesn't go on completely.
Well, there's about 20 of that. That's definitely from Odines, I would say, maybe more, to be honest with you. You know, and I remember what it was like 2 years ago when Don came in. We had a much higher number than that, I think, as well. I'm not sure if that's put in capital or not. Though this has been put in operations.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so at the end of the day, we come out to a net operating income of 425. And I just want to make one comment here. If you look across the board here, everything is nice, over 400. In the days prior to 2020, I mean, it was barely even at 100,000, and we would often come in at a negative. So just it's nice to see. I've never seen this so high in a full 4-year budget like this. So it is very nice to see.
Balance sheet loves it. I know.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, as we talk about revenue not growing as fast as expenses, this is where I fell down to this line. Obviously, this is one minus the other. And, you know, it's not like we're running razor thin to zero. So we're still building that operating income to an extent that, you know, it's sustainable at this level. I look to the future and I get a little concerned about the directionality of it without augmenting revenue in some way.
Yeah.
So if I could just take a step back and look at this, the number will be 415, not 425, I think, because we dropped 10 grand. So if our net income, let's say it's 425, just looking at this, our city debt, what we pay them is about $120,000. So that's what we pay the city. Our commercial debt, which is what we pay for $75,000 for the carts, whatever it is, for the Visage system, plus all the equipment that Jim buys that we expense over a 5 or 6 year period. That commercial debt is up to $181,000 in 2025. So we're at $301,000 that we have to put out, and we make $425,000. However, next year, we're also planning on spending $286,000 on our capital budget,
Which is
as we're doing the bunkers and a few other things. So that's an actual outlay of 587. And compared to an income of 425, which is $162,000 difference. For that $162,000, we're dipping into our cash. So just to reiterate, you know, Joe, and perhaps I know what Gary's feeling, I'm sure he's going to say something, you know, it's something that isn't sustainable for the next 3, 4, 5 years. We will need to look at our capital, and we'll need to look at our revenue. I don't see any really big swings in payroll moving forward. I think those big swings have already been made, but it's just something that I think is unsustainable at this level, you know, moving forward for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So it's my 2 cents.
I tend to think, I mean, on the commercial debt, that is increasing. I think 170 last year, but you know, in the 140s the prior years. That we need to watch that. And then on the capital expense, I think that is a lot of deferred stuff as well.
Yep.
That's coming up to speed and probably won't need to sustain quite at that level. I know there are some bigger things, and there's some really big things that are kind of on a priority 3 list, but that's the one where I think you'll really get the most wash, and then we may in the future need to say no on some of the commercial debt and say, no, we've got to find a lower cost option, or we're not going to be able to have that piece of equipment.
Yeah, if we can keep the cards for another year, after the 5 years, the 6 years kind of free, because we will pay them off after 5 years. And that would be a big chunk there. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
Isn't it a lease that you have to return them?
Yeah, it's not a, we don't get them at the end. I don't know how that would work.
Everything's
Oh, really?
for sale.
So it's not a dollar buyout, Mark? No?
Not a
No,
buyout.
that's the, no, not carts, not carts.
And nobody buys carts anymore unless they're
Okay.
gas.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we have to release again?
Mhm.
That's what we've done historically.
Great.
Or would they last another year? Could we go 6 years with them? Or
Sure.
what's the situation?
No, they're in
That's a
great
thought.
shape. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, we could
I
go
mean,
another
could-
year. I mean, we're not
But it-
paying, you know.
I'm
we'll-
sure it wouldn't be free though. They would charge us for that extra
Of
year.
course not.
Yeah,
but there's
but
a lease
it's gotta-
extension, and it might be able to be entered into on a lower rate,
Yeah.
which is a good idea. If they're in really good shape, if the upholstery is fine, maybe a couple of dings and dents, but easy to fix.
Yep.
That's another good idea.
Yep.
Put it on the list of opportunities.
I can make a call and look into that.
Great.
Yeah. But
Gary, what are your thoughts?
well, you've already said what I'm thinking, and that's the importance of the long range planning. Okay, because clearly we're working on the bunkers for this year and next year in 25 and 26, which are critical things, and then that will sustain the course, also give us a good reputation, because I think our play will be much more consistent in the traps and everything. But I think it's important to keep spending, but we have to know what that level is. And because we can't keep dipping into our cash by 100,000 a year, and we'll be out of cash in 3 or 4 years. So that's why I say we got to look at where can we get more revenue, which is minimal, but we have to try and get some more there. And then we just have to keep an eye on all the expenses and just kind
I
of
just
control
wanna-
that.
I just want to add one more thing, Gary, and I'm thinking about how much money the supporters of Oak Hills tennis has gotten over the last couple of years. And
Right.
I think if there was some effort to try to get the golfers to do similar things that with the tennis, you could have a very large increase in the golf supporters account. And it just means making that available and picking out some projects and asking people to help do that. So I think it's an
And-
untapped resource.
And I think you're right on that. I was kind of surprised when I heard about the nonprofit and it was only related to the tennis courts. Okay, and I think that's worth looking
Yeah.
at.
I don't think there's enough being done on the golf side, honestly.
I think
Yeah, I
you're
just
up
don't think there's enough
right.
emphasis on the golf side.
There's anything being done on the golf side.
I've
nothing.
been asking about that for the last couple of years. Maybe we can get on that and have somebody help chair that and because I know there's revenue out there that people would be more than happy to chair that,
I think that's true. Yeah.
just due to the sheer numbers of golfers.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to have a little, a little goal, and figure out if we can do that. But I think that's all part of, long range, and, we need to have that on the table too. Paul, do you know if any other public courses have that? I don't think so.
So what you need to do, guys, you've got to establish a 501c3 foundation, which is obviously what the tennis people have done. It's the first thing you have-
No.
No. The Supporters of Oak Hills Park is for Oak Hills Park. Within there is a general fund, there is a tennis fund, there is a course fund, there is a nature fund. So any donations that have come in, we can easily get donations for the park right now. Just we've only been getting donations for the tennis fund. We have a few bucks. We have a few bucks though in nature, in general, and so forth.
That's great. So it's designated as a 501c3 for Oak Hills Park then, right?
100%.
The
That's
supporters.
fantastic. That's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
That's
just
great
have to,
news.
We
Now
have
you need
had-
a
we have
project
had
to
30.
put together
had-
for it.
We had like $30,000 donated at some point.
and we
to the-
used that
Great.
for hole 5 paving or something. I seem to recall. But yeah, I mean, we have to pull ourselves together, and I know Jerry is hot to trot on this.
Is he still here?
Obviously not.
No, he is.
No, he just left.
Can't think why, Jerry.
I mean, can there be
I
a
know,
tournament as a fundraiser for Oak Hills with a project behind it?
We used to do something called the Mayor's Trophy, which I don't know if that is worth it going forward because it was a lot of work for $8,000. But at the time it was worth it. But something along those lines, and maybe promote the supporters as this is a real charity event.
Well, you could also, do a live auction and
They did.
silent auction.
Yeah,
and
they
you
did.
do
Yeah,
it-
people would knock on doors around town and go to the local pizzeria and say, "Do you
Right.
want to give a $50 gift certificate and so forth?" Yeah.
Yeah, and we got the men's club, the women's club, the 9 holders,
Absolutely.
we get
Yeah.
people to participate and, see what we can do.
I have a
But we
great
oughta-
project for Oak Hills.
Yeah,
So anyway, to wrap up over here, you guys basically said what I was going to say in the bottom here, that this I fully agree. And because of the bunkers and all the new equipment coming in these last couple of years, I do see these cash effect numbers coming down going forward, and they really do have to. So anything else on the budget? We don't have to vote tonight.
2 things. How are the changeover to electric R is the wrong conjugation of that verb. How is the changeover to electric for blowers and those sorts of things being reflected in any of this?
I have no idea.
Does it affect us, Joe? Because we are so many acres.
Yes.
it
Does
will ultimately, but I
Yeah.
talked to Lisa Shanahan and I said, you can't have that, what you're saying on properties of this size. And I've really pushed her.
Yeah.
And
Thought we were gonna get.
I actually don't. I think it's a 2026 thing, like
Yeah.
calendar year 26 thing.
It's a deferred thing.
But so just for everybody's memory, keep an eye on that for
Yeah.
a future budget. It's
Okay.
it's gonna come and it's gonna cost a bit of money. I don't think it's not gonna be $1 million. It's gonna be in the thousands, but still we need to kind of provision for that when we're doing the budgeting at that time.
well, like I said, I'm kind of pushing Lisa to say, you can't do it on properties of that size.
I think
I don't think
the
it's feasible
ordinance.
to. I don't think it's feasible to. They don't make electric engines big enough to blow.
Right.
Well, in on 180 acre properties, but I may be wrong.
And I think the ordinance came with the provision to revisit
Yes.
Yeah.
at the time of implementation or shortly before implementation. So,
Right.
you know, we may find another deferral there, but just kind of keep it in mind.
Yep.
And then the other thing, so that was one of the challenging questions, Mark. And then the other challenging question, reserves. And I've done this 6 times now, and this is the first time this is occurring to me, I think. I've usually seen like a contribution to reserves come sort of as a capital expense, because it's kind of, you know, it's not green money, it's purple money. It's only for purple occasions, right? And so that's not how this is being accounted here. It seems like that's just counted as cash. Am I reading it right? And is that the way it should be done?
So you're talking about the actual capital reserve.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so what happens is any rent that we get from a restaurateur, we put 50% into a separate bank account where it is only to be used for CapEx. So that is a balance sheet item that is not reflected on here. The only thing that you can infer from that is that if we do in fact make $39,200, that will basically be putting $20,000 into to build the reserve account.
Say that again?
According to our lease with the city of Norwalk, we are required to move 50% of our restaurant rent, any monies we make from the restaurant are to be moved into a separate capital reserve bank account that can be used for only CapEx. Right now, that went from 45, I think we're up to $52,000.
So,
Go ahead.
so does that show down on the bottom as part of your commercial debt and town debt, cash being put away, or is that an additional 20,000 that's not showing down there?
It's not that, it's a separate bucket. It's simply just it's cash. It's cash in our bank account.
Yeah, but
which isn't.
but it's not part of the 301.
Not coming out of the bottom line or showing that it's coming out of the bottom.
Right. I
Because
don't
we're
think
not-
it appears anywhere here. The ways to do it would be to reduce that rent income. I wouldn't suggest that.
No.
Or treat it as a capital expense.
But it is not an expense. It is cash to be used for capital. We can use that tomorrow on this amount here, and that is included in our. It's our cash. It is not being expended. The expenditures are shown here. So whether we have it in one account or 2 accounts, which we currently do, it does not matter in that sense, because we're going to spend more than $45,000 or whatever the number is in the next few years, and we can always choose to utilize from that fund. It's just one bank account versus another bank account.
Well, I understand that, but it's not here when we look at 161. Okay, you're telling me I got to put another $20,000 into a bank account. Therefore, my net cash effect, okay, is going to be 20,000 less.
I know it's still our bank balance, and we can still
I-
utilize it.
Yeah, so I think this is really a net operating cash effect. I think what I think would elucidate this for me with minimal changes, Mark, is if you could put 2 new lines on there for cash. One is operating cash and one is reserve cash, which isn't really cash, but you know what I mean.
I was thinking the same
Yes.
thing. Maybe if you called
Maybe
it
put it-
restricted cash or something.
Yeah.
Put it below the net cash effect maybe so that
Yeah,
it's.
exactly. And that'll also, I mean, it's just good to have on here so that we actually see, okay, how is this minus 161,859 depleting our cash overall? And, you know, how could some of that 52 be deployed into the 286? I'm just saying numbers, sorry, but we have a $52,000 reserve balance end of FY24 in 2 months, month and a half. And, you know, some of that could be deployed to offset that 286.
Yep.
So those sorts of things, but just having them there as numbers and where we think they'll end for FY25 will be useful.
Okay.
Yeah, you could almost show it as almost an increase in our cash in a way too, by having that. But I would only use that reserve thing. So tomorrow, you know, we have a big, you know, pipe disaster or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
And, you know, that's what that money's for. It's not for the bunkers.
No,
That's
like
a rainy day fund.
it's an
Yeah.
emergency fund,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yep.
Okay, shall I stop sharing?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
those were my
Okay.
questions. But a really good, rigorous conversation. That's from a. We've usually had that sort of a conversation in the June meeting when we're approving it. So I feel like June's meeting is going to be just a snap.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
okay.
not doing this presentation again.
It was good.
Any other summary changes for questions for Mark? No, really nice job. And I know, Mark, it's not just you. Give you a good amount of credit. It's Paul, it's Jim, it's the finance committee. So thanks everybody for being involved.
Thanks.
Let's
It's
close
not easy
that.
to pull all that together.
You make it look easy.
It does take a while.
We, you know, maybe in a couple of minutes, without any objections, I'm going to add an agenda item to do a restaurant report from the restaurateur, John Lloyd.
Yeah, Joe, any way we could get the restaurant report earlier in the agenda for future, because I feel bad. John's been waiting around long.
I totally agree, and that's not the design of this, but I hope you enjoyed poring over our finances with us. Yes,
My
Richard.
7-year-old daughter is very happy that she's got the run of the house while I'm pinned here.
So,
You
Rich,
got
to your
me pinned.
question, yes, we'll have Jim put it earlier in the agenda. It
Thanks.
should be up with committee reports or somewhere
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
John, please take it away.
Okay, good evening, folks. I guess the restaurant operation, we've experienced some pretty positive developments now that we've got 6 weeks or so under our belt. We finally got our provisional liquor permits a couple of weeks ago, and that's given us a much needed boost. We've been involved with some of our first outings in Norwalk and see how it's done here. And we're continuing to make progress with growing activity in the restaurants, although we have been somewhat beset by the weather. So for the outings, we just noted how well organized they are and how very much different they are from our experiences at Ridgefield. Very well organized by Steve and Paul and the team. The first outing was Tunnels to Towers, and they opted not to engage with the restaurant for food. But we managed to, in the 11th hour, strike a deal with them for alcohol sales, where the outing pre-purchased alcohol from us, and a set amount of alcohol, and Odean's ensured it was distributed by our staff in a lawful manner through the carts and the halfway house and the restaurant. And the second outing, they had a modest breakfast through us, which was just coffee and donuts. And again, they pre-purchased the alcohol, which seems to be a growing trend with outings here, somewhat of a middle ground. And Blind Rhino, which is a big outing coming up this Monday, will follow in much the same manner. Although we did decline their request to bring in their own food truck to feed them lunch. So we have managed to sell them some lunch on Monday. And while all of this has been a little bit controversial, relations with the outings have ultimately been pretty harmonious, and the feedback from them has been positive. I haven't really heard anything negative about them.
Good.
In the aftermath.
No, if I could just kick in here very quickly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've had some backdoor conversations with with Blind Rhino, with O'Neill's and stuff like that, because I happen to know, especially O'Neill's, and it's very interesting. And I think that Oak Hills has been the best deal in town for these people, because what they do, they actually don't use any of the Oak Hills facilities apart from the golf. They don't use any food and beverage, and they bring in their own stuff, and then they brought their own booze in. Now, part of it's from a charitable point of view, they can make more money by doing this, But I think little by little, this is going to change so that we're going to, you know, people coming in are going to have to understand that they have to use our caterer, our facilities, and it's good pricing. I think it's going to be a question of time, but I think we will be successful as we move further along. The not-for-profits are always going to be difficult, but I think we also need to look and see if there are other outings out there as we move further forward. Paul, I'm sure we can look at this as well, work with Steve Shepherd and Jim, etc., to try and bring in some maybe outings that would be more better for us, or different, should I say. So that's my 2 cents as well.
Yeah, for sure. And our approach has really been to see this year as being a transitional year, and to not play hardball with a lot of the well-established outings, and to try and find a compromise solution that works in all cases, but doesn't at the same time jeopardize the restaurant and our insurance umbrella and our liquor permits, which we've only just got. So hopefully in the forthcoming years we'll be able to find some new partners to work with for outings, and they should benefit the restaurant, and then, you know, therefore the Oak Hills Park Authority in a more meaningful manner. And from the restaurant operations point of view, from May, our hours have been set from 6:30 to 8, Monday to Thursday, 6 in the morning till 9, Fridays and Saturdays, and closing an hour earlier on Sundays. While maybe on occasion we've not been opening exactly at those times, it really is a result of just teething issues with some employees failing to meet their schedules, but been working hard at finessing the team and training on our standards. And the aspiration for May is to stay open, but in the event of the course being empty of golfers due to weather, we have been forced to close an hour or two early. But the longer term plan this season is to develop the non-golfing crowd so that we're kind of better insulated against bad weather, and that we can hold our own regardless of what's going on the course. But at the moment we have to, you know, we still retain the discretion to kind of open and close when you know, so we're not breaking our own backs financially, and until the weather improves. And the menu is growing for the restaurant, and only a few items from this weekend will be unavailable. We don't have sufficient volume at the restaurant to run everything, but we're almost there. I think after this weekend we're going to be working at 100% capacity. We're fully stocked with alcohol. The halfway house is running well. We've been enjoying a few days of the concession cart running, training and employing a lot more people. And from what I understand, feedback on the food and service has been positive, and a gratifying amount of non-golfers and people from the local area are beginning to come in and find us out and give us a go. So that's all good. That's pretty much it.
Hey, John, I saw, I think it was on Tuesday around lunchtime that your patio was completely filled in. Was that a party, or was that just?
No, spontaneous show of interest. Yeah. It's just,
Yeah, I was one of them, and I always try the burger, and your burger was excellent. Cert came on very timely, so I was very pleased with that. My only complaint was the price of the IPA seemed high at $11. So one of my golfing buddy was thought that was very high. So next time we'll look at the menu and see what the prices are.
well, yeah, we have high stuff and we have low stuff. You know, we've got $5 draft and we've got $11 draft. You know, we are trying to patronize our local craft brewers, and they have expensive beer. It's good beer, but it's expensive. But we're always going to have a cheap beer on tap. So
okay,
sorry you didn't find it this time.
Yeah,
I
we
will say
tried to support the local guys too.
I will say that beer that he served you was $2 less than last year.
Yeah.
And Jerry on Tuesday brought Darien Men's Club over. So we had a nice group of guys who used the restaurant from Darien. Right, Jerry?
Excellent.
Yeah.
We had 20 people.
Yeah, Larry was appreciative for the times. Yep.
great. They were happy.
Great. Any other
John, I
questions
just have-
for John?
I have
Oh,
a
Rich, go ahead.
question. I know we put a lot of, Jim Holiday sent a lot of emails out with advertising the restaurant, Mother's Day and other stuff. Other social media happening? I haven't seen it, so I'm just curious if there's other Facebook things or other social media happening to advertise for the restaurant.
There's a little bit. It's from our own point of view, we're still looking at hiring a full-time person to manage the Odean's kind of network of different social media profiles that we have. But we're going to get there.
Okay.
We're just not quite there yet.
And we brought over the quesadillas for the tennis team Monday night. They loved them, so they got great marks for the quesadillas.
Great.
Thank you.
And we are beginning to service the ladies tennis home matches. I think we've got about 30 breakfasts that we're delivering between now and July. So that's great to be introduced to that crowd.
Good. Thanks very much. Thanks for staying around so late.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
All right. If there's nothing else, I think I can solicit a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any second?
You had one more item on the agenda,
Oh, we did.
season end tournament. What was that?
Let's push this to next month when Jim Holiday will be here.
All right, fine.
Hopefully.
Okay,
Okay. So second on the motion to adjourn?
I second.
I'll second.
All right. And hearing no objection. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Mark.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.